Welcome to the Thanksgiving Day Special. I'm Roy Harrell, Paul Harrell's brother. If you're new here, Paul died in September from cancer. Thank you for being new here. If you've been here a long time and you've been here through this journey with Paul and I in the last year, thank you for hanging in there. Thank you for watching this today. I know this special means a lot to a lot of people, and I feel the pressure, trust me. I'm going to do my best to get this done. You're going to have to put up with the rain. We're in the Oregon Coast Range. It's a miserable, wet, muddy day. We got our little Old Westy shelter hooked up here. We got our fire going here. We're going to do some Dutch oven cooking. I got my Old Westy Colt 44-40 caliber single action army on with my fancy new gun belt and a knife that Paul used to carry in his 3-day survival pack. Speaking of knives, today for my butcher knives I'm going to use my K-bar, which I've had for 40 some years now, and we're going to use Paul's Buck 119. Kind of a funny Paul story, not really, is that he bought one identical to this when we were kids. You know, like into hunting, but 10, 12, somewhere in there. And somehow I boogered it up and broke the belt loop off of it. And I felt guilty for about 30 some years. And I finally found this one and bought him one and replaced it. He carried this on his web gear and he's out in the woods and stuff. This was his go-to knife, which is why it's here with us. We're going to use it to cut up our potatoes and our carrots and our bison and hopefully not drown in the rain today. I've had this one. This one has been on every elk hunt, almost every hunt I've ever done. I built God knows how many brush blinds. I carried it when I was in the Air Force just because. So this one I've had on the same adventures and when Paul and I have been together. So these two knives represent the two of us. Why bison? Well, because Paul, after he was deployed to Kuwait during one of the operations over there, he bought myself and our dad and him a bison hunt. I'm going to clean up our vegetables while I tell a story. And it was back in Iowa, and I think it was this, I was going to say summer, but it wasn't. It was in September-ish when we always went back to see my dad, his birthday time. And it was a night like this, believe it or not, under this tent, configured differently. And Paul loved doing Old Westy rendezvous. And I know my hat's not period, my pants aren't period, so we're just pretending. We are not cowboy action. Everything has to be correct. We're just out having fun. So don't fry me on it too much. Anyway, back to the story. So we get there, and Paul, because he wants to do things Old Westy as best he can, he has a 54 caliber Hawken muzzleloading rifle. I have a 50 caliber muzzleloading rifle. And he wants to shoot this bison with a round ball because that's what the Old Westy guys did. Not modern, conical, and when I say modern, I mean I have Thompson Center Hunter conical bullets, okay? So mine were 50 caliber, 365 grain, they're hard cast, and I had 100 grains of triple F black powder behind them. Can't see any further smoke? Well, I'm still here. Anyway, Paul wanted to use a round ball. So he's got 54 caliber patched round ball, just like the original guys would have. And he can't shoot it. He can't overload it because if you shoot much more than about 80 grains, he told me, it overpowers the threads and the ball doesn't grip the threads. What kind of idiot is that? The rifling in the barrel. My goodness, I am emotional today. Anyway, so it'll strip the rifling. The ball will go faster and not grip the rifling is what I'm trying to get to, folks. So he can't shoot it with a higher load. And he is shooting for a trophy class bison. And my goodness, they're big animals. So, there's water in my pot. Well, it'll help potatoes. And they're sweet potatoes, because we're making it a little bit different and healthier. Anyway, so we go out there and Paul gets the first shot, and my dad and I are shooting for basically meat cows. So cow bison and about 4-year-old is what we get to shoot. Paul goes first, and he sneaks up on the herd, because bison love living in herds. And he shoots this animal in the chest from about, 60 yards or so. And it runs off. And then trying to find where you hit and what animal in the herd you hit becomes the game of the day. Well, he gets another shot, and it runs off. And while we're trying to find that one, the guide we're with, he takes my dad and I over to where the herd is, and we get to shoot ours. Well, just like in the movies, and I got fortunate, we're about maybe 40 yards, and I shoot mine, and it crumples just like in the movies, and I'm not kidding you. It goes kaboom right down where it was. Then I have to reload, and I go up and I put one through its head. When we did all that, we find out that I hit mine straight through the spine when it was, at the butcher shop. We find all that out. Now, about that same time, because bison like hanging around, they're injured because they're buffalo type. They're not really buffalo. We all know that, but we call them that. But they are a definite herd protection type animal. Not like deer or elk. I mean, they hang around and they protect their injured. And you got to wait so you can go up and get your animal. Anyway, they're hanging around. It's my dad's turn to shoot. My dad is shooting a 450 Black Powder Express. A little education for you. 450 Black Powder Express, if you made that, is a European cartridge. And he had a double rifle. I want to say check-made. Beautiful gun. And the difference with the 450, Americans would call that same caliber and shell a 45-120. So the old Sharps type calibers, it was a 45-120, or some people might call it a 45 by 3.5, because the shell is 3.5 inches long. The difference between the 450 Black Powder Express and the 45-120 is the rim or the head on the case. Because to put them into double rifles, you need a thinner rim and head on the case. So that's what he had. You can still find the brass today. He had it loaded up with a bullet, about a 325 grain bullet that was designed for 45-70s, because they're going slower and they expand, so they're softer than bullets of that same diameter for I lost my train of thought, sorry. But the big oh man, Winchester, not, sorry, I went brain dead. Anyway, the 45 caliber modern rifle ones push them faster. They have a little bit heavier bullet. So anyway, he shoots his and it goes down, and we have ours. Paul is off with the guide now, and he has to find his bison. He finds it, but now because he shot it twice with a round ball with virtually no effect, he has switched to his 450 Marlin. That's a lie. He switched to his 444 Marlin. Lever gun. You know, I'm getting thirsty and a little cold, and I've washed my veggies. I'm going to make us some coffee. So, you're going to have to hold on just a minute. I'm going to put this in here. We're going to go walk up and put it on the fire. Just leave me alone. Okay, we're going to walk up here, put it on the fire, get it boiling. Just like that. Luckily I have some mitts with me. We're going to come back here and continue our story. Anyway, so Paul's now switched to his 444 Marlin lever gun. Ooh, sharper knife. That's sweet. He tracks this bison around, and at one point he decides he's going to head shoot it. And he does. And he hits it right about here. And his version of the story is that that bison just went and just stood there. Kind of looked at him like, why'd you do that? Well, this bison finally got tired of being shot. And 9 shots later, between the muzzleloader and the 444 Marlin, he has his bison. And it was a monster bison. The eye socket around of the skull was, I'm not kidding you folks, like that thick. The base of the horns was about that big around. Ginormous bison. Then and if everything works out right in post, there will be a picture of Paul, my dad, and I with his bison. Now, he went on a couple other bison hunts, took people. So, that's where we are. Now, Paul liked Old Westy stuff. And at the point of the bison story, he was more into rendezvous stuff than Old Westy. And the difference being that Old West was based on mountain man fur trapper era, or time frame. And it was more single shot black powder rifles and, you know, tomahawks, and all the things that he's done. Which is why he was really good in one of the videos at throwing tomahawks and knives. Now, he used to take his friends, his 2 grown-up best friends as he grew up, and I'll name drop them here, Chuck and Greg, and they would go on Old West trips and with Ruger 6 guns, usually 44 mag, and except for, again, this one's a Colt. I'm proud of that. Anyway, they would go on their trips, they would Dutch oven cook, they would use kerosene lanterns. Yes, at times, kind of a miserable trip, but fun and challenging. And that's what he liked doing. And then as he got a little older and really got into black powder and rendezvous and stuff, then he did this. Hence this frame and all the Dutch ovens. And he won, time after time, he won Dutch oven cooking competitions. No surprise. He got really good at it. Me, on the other hand, I didn't get so good at those things, which is why we're keeping it simple today with this stew. So, organic carrots, sweet potatoes, bison roast. I haven't gone out and shot the bison, but we get it from the Stangel Ranch in Eastern Oregon. Anyway, so get these cut up here in just a minute. Now, I'm sure there's a lot of people out there with other Paul stories. I'm sure there's people out there that have enjoyed these Thanksgiving specials. Whee! Deer food. All right, welcome back. Battery died, so I've done a little bit while we've been changing out batteries. Got the carrots done, sharpening up my knife a little bit here. The problem with doing this in real time today, again, putting up with our pauses and batteries running out, rain's louder. So we're going to try to do this because we only have one chance at getting this all done. Added a little wood to the fire. So I think what I was starting into was that a lot of people spend this video and this time with Paul because we have, God, the comments have been outstanding over all the years. I wasn't alone. Thank you, because I didn't want to watch football. So again, for those that are new and for those that have been here, Paul talked about, not, hiding away while you watch this. Hiding away while you watch this to, stay away from the family, I guess, and to stay out of chores and a lot of other things. So if that's what you're doing, then I hope we are meeting your needs today. And I'm starting to shake. I'm getting cold. Gotta build up that fire. So, anyway, that's where we are. Now, we recently went over $1.5 million, folks. Dollars. See, my brain's not even working. Again, it's an emotional day. Sorry. Subscribers. That's what we did. We went over 1.5 million subscribers, and that is a huge thanks to all of you again. So, please get your comments in and your questions in, and we're going to try to, I'll answer them. We'll try to do updates, things like that. Now, what will the plan, hopefully the plan is today, if we can keep a fire going and coals going, is to brown the bison, saute the onions a little bit, add some moisture, get our carrots and potatoes in there, get them all cooking. While that cooks, we're going to make some keto type biscuits, because I'm on a diet trying to stay away from as much old grains and things like that as possible. Okay, it's just what I choose. I'm not telling you to do anything. Trust me, I miss just regular old-fashioned baking powder biscuits as much as anybody else. But that's what we're doing today. And they're simple, and they're similarly made, but they're not baking powder biscuits. You want to watch a master, watch one of Paul's old videos when he does that. Some of my best times up elk hunting were Paul cooking Dutch oven food. So, anyway, there we are. Perfect. Dump the water out. So, see what other kind of, I had, Paul, toward the end, by the way, the last couple years, Paul had a piece of property over in Eastern Oregon where he did all his filming on. I don't have that luxury. I live on the other side of the state, and get fresh paper towels here instead of those bloody ones. So here we are. Anyway, for those that don't know me, let's do a little intro. I am Paul's brother, obviously. I'm 2 years older than he was. We're the only brothers. We don't have any sisters. Our father's deceased. My mother lives back in Minnesota. Sorry, Missouri. My grandkids live back that way. Anyway, and that's about it. I have for 36 years now, probably a lot longer than I should have, I have been in law enforcement. And in that time, I've worked small city. Now I'm working small city again. I worked for a sheriff's office for a number of years. I was a DARE officer. I was a search and rescue coordinator. I was a school resource officer. And one thing I did do is I ran the cadet program, which is like Law Enforcement Explorers, if anybody knows what those are. But basically, it's a youth program for people interested in law enforcement. Now, that's about all I'm going to say there, because we know that, well, we just know. So what else do I do? Well, I'm a father of 5, and we got 11 grandchildren. Been married to my wife for 42 years. Kind of proud of that. The same wife. I like to deer hunt, which on my way out today, hopefully, because I have a muzzleloader tag and season's open, but right where I'm sitting, can't shoot one if it walked into camp. So we're not doing that. Anyway, and I like to elk hunt, go jackrabbit hunting when we can. That's something that Paul and I loved. That was so much fun. Anyway, that's where we are. I have seen, speaking of jackrabbit hunting, and you gotta bear with me for not looking up so I don't slice my fingers off while I cube up this bison roast that we're gonna put into our stew here in just a minute. Paul and I went jackrabbit hunting. The very first time that he went with me was the dead of winter one year, and the rabbits were off the hook. And in less than 24 hours of hunting, we killed a whole bunch, let's put it that way. 10 degrees weather outside, sleeping in a tent. It was a fun trip then. A little old for that kind of fun, but that was the first time. And then we went back many times after. We used to try to go every January 1st weekend. And we took a whole bunch of over the years. I didn't make all of them. The crew would go. Some of the crew has come and gone, would go. And the reason we went in the dead of winter is because the jackrabbits, man, my hands are chilly. The jackrabbits didn't have the little babies going, and they weren't mating. So that's why we went then, even though it was cold and frosty and stormy. All right. So what I think I'm going to do, since my hands are cold and my nose is running, what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to finish cutting this up and get back to you. Give myself time to think about another Paul story. We'll get back to you when we move all this to the fire and get it going. Okay, welcome back. It is still pouring out here. I'm going to have to break down and put on a coat yet. And luckily this is nickel plated, so it's not going to rust. Don't panic. And it's not an original, except for it is a Colt. It is built by Colt. It is a single action Army in 4440, but it's not an 1800s single action Army. So we have added our seasonings. We've got our meat brown. We are ready to add our carrots and sweet potatoes to the mix. So what we're going to do is just that. And then once we do this, let me pour off some rainwater. Yep, it's raining that hard, folks. There, we don't want to cool it off worse than we have. Okay, there's that one. This one's even worse. And no, I did not add water for theatrical appeal. That's just where we are. Okay, there's our mix. Now we're going to set these back on here. Instead of the traditional putting coals under them, we're going to set these on the fire. Going to have to move our fire. Got some more coals here. Anyway, all right. Going to mix all this together. Then we're going to split it into the two, and hopefully it'll turn out. Now, give me just a minute to get it mixed up. Now, if the consistency of the cook is in the consistency of the cut, then nothing about this is going to be consistent. But we got to use our two brothers' knives working together, which is cool. We're going to get them softened up, and we're going to start the biscuits in just a minute. So we'll get to that, and I got to get under the shelter a little bit more to get my biscuits, so I don't have to do that, worry about that too much. So let's see what we can do here. Try to get carrots and potatoes, and then I'll add the juice from the fry pan. I have to go get my, keep from getting smoke inhalation here. Come on. All right. Can't go too fast. And remember, this is it's not live as you're watching it, but it's all real time. So try not to bore you too much here, but gotta get it done. Gonna have to step back and get my gloves in just a minute. All right. Oh man. For the record, it is white sweet potato. Gloves a little overkill. May not be able to get it off today. Okay. Sorry. Lost my other one. Pan's still heavy, so I have to use two hands on it. There we go. All right. A little bit of juice. A little bit of juice. Potatoes. More juice and potatoes. Let nature wash this one as it sits aside. Move these over the fire better. There we go. All right. There we go. You thought I was going to pick that up with the glove I wiped my rain off my nose with, didn't you? Okay. Stir these in a little bit. And add just a little bit more water so they steam those potatoes and carrots really good. Well, let's see if this lid will fit. Give me just a minute while I step off camera and get the lids. Sorry about that. Lack of they were even undercover. There we go. All right. Now, we got our coffee done. Well, I guess we don't have our coffee done. I thought it boiled. I'm going to set it right over here in the fire. Let it get going and boiling. Got our briquettes for our biscuits going. Leave those there. Now we're going to go back and work on the biscuits. Get my stool. Oh man. We're just getting drowned out today, folks. Sorry. It's just the way it is. Let me put this under here. See if I can scoot back just a little bit. There we go. All right. We're just going to do a small batch. We had a error in transport. Our eggs broke, so I have to do it this way. All right, there's that. Baking powder, aluminum free, better for you baking powder. Measure like Paul used to. There. I will go light on the salt. Sea salt, even non-iodized. A little bit better for you. It's about ready to become a salt block out here today. All right. A little bit out of order, obviously, because normally you'd want to do all your dry ingredients. Then you would put your butter and cut that in. Then you put your eggs. But desperate times, desperate measures. Okay. Set that aside for just a minute. I have cleaned the knife since cutting the meat with it. Set the cutting surface aside. Surprisingly, my butter is still really hard. I wonder why that is. Oh, get this cut in. We'll get the pan prepped. So what we're going to do to keep them from burning is we're going to throw a flour tortilla on the bottom of the Dutch oven. Now keep our biscuits from burning on the bottom. Let's see if we can get this cut in at all. Of course, I forgot my pastry cutter or shortening cutter or whatever word you want to use, but so maybe I'll just break these up by hand. It'll be easier. And then what we're going to do once we get our biscuits on is we're going to let it all cook down, give you guys a break, and we're going to come back to you when everything's finished. And that time we'll get some things cleaned up. So, in the meantime, I know it's not the best. I think the taste will be the same though. The butter will melt in. You won't even have to put butter on them when you're done. I think Paul's up there watching over me, probably cursing me a little bit at this point, not being prepared better. But you know, that's what brothers do sometimes. They also help bail each other out. So I'm sure he's going to give me some guidance. You guys have been nothing but graceful in your comments. You've been nothing but outstanding in your support. Shameless plug of the way you keep this sponsor free is to continue to support us through Patreon. And that's all I'll say with a shameless plug today. All right, so let's set this out of the rain back here. Get my Dutch oven. And these are drop biscuits, by the way. So we're just gonna kind of form them. There's enough butter in them. They should cook nice and not stick. I think it'll help if I start with less than a gallon of water. Excuse me. Perfect sized. Works up the sides and everything. See? There you go. And I know I'm hurrying around here. That's because things get drowned pretty quick today. So we're going to make these big drop type biscuits. This is not your normal flour. This is almond flour, which is why they're more keto type biscuits. Regular everyday sea salted butter. All right. All right. Lid's up there. Let's go put these on. We're going to put some coals on top of them to do like a true Dutch oven should and get them in the Dutch oven. Move that one up just a little bit. Move this one up just a little bit. Give myself some room here. Perfect. There we go. Okay. Now, it is really wet and really cold out here today. So, I'm gonna dig down in here and get some good hot coals. Whew. Try not to melt my shirt. There we go. There we go. And help these cook more. There we go. Pretty sad when your coals go out in the rain. Now I know all you Boy Scout Dutch oven aficionados out there, I know this one's way too many. I'll take some off here in a little bit. Put some over here. Let my coals get going just a little bit better. All right. Now, what we're going to do is let these cook and show you the final results. And then start working on our dessert. So hang in there and thank you for being with us this long. Well, while we were waiting for our stew to finish, see? Anyway, we got him. Hold on. Here, we'll get him closer. Stay. He's a really nice rainbow out of the local pond here. Now I'm embarrassing myself. I should be on a loan or something. There we go. There we go. So, we're going to have him for dinner later. Okay, so we've got our stew done and our biscuits done. Biscuits got a little bit overdone. We got our coffee done, so we'll start with over the fire coffee. And it is still hot, and we've taken off a long time ago. So a close-up of, ta-da, stew. There you go. We got a friend to taste test here in just a minute. You gotta put that back on so we don't drown it. Look at the water on this. Yeah, it's still raining, folks. And then, yes, a little overdone, but not done. I mean, sorry, they are really done. I'll get it right in a minute, guys. They're not overdone in the middle. They're not dried out. They look like it, but it's good. So there you go.
So like,
all right, so
burn it down.
No, that fire's not going anywhere today, folks. So we got Aaron, who is the manager of the property we're on, and we're going to share our stew and let him decide whether he wants one of those slightly overdone biscuits. But sweet potatoes,
Okay.
bison for the meat, and carrots with all a bunch of sauce. And so, here you go, a little bit more.
It smells amazing.
It is not a curry. There you go. But you have to let us know on camera how it tastes, and whether, you know, and then go ahead and lie for me. That'd be great. But Aaron brought down some Taster's Choice type stuff. We forgot to mention when we did the close-up, again, the two knives, because, you know, the brothers work together, and there you go. So, how is it?
That's very good. Bison, you can make it chewy real quickly. And this is very tender.
Okay.
Dang good.
All right. Woohoo! It's dang good. Hold on. Now we get a, gosh, I've been pouring water off stuff all day. So let's see if we can get a biscuit. Sorry, no butter. There you go. Put that in there.
It is rich enough.
It is a keto biscuit, almond flour, so it's not baking powder. I mean, they're baking powder, but it's not a flour biscuit.
Interesting.
Whee! Okay. Got to put the lid back on before they
So
drink.
gluten-free sort of thing?
Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah.
I've got friends coming in who are that, and
Oh,
I want this recipe.
all right. It's baking powder, eggs, milk, butter, and flour. So they're a little overdone. We saw that. Okay.
Texture-wise,
So,
that's very impressive for a gluten-free situation.
oh yeah, it's come a long ways. And I made them. You saw that. They're didn't buy those. So folks, thank you for hanging with us. We're losing light. We're going to be back to finish it all up another time. Get that Pop-Tart blackberry all done up for you. It's been a ride. It's been fun. It's not over yet. So we're back to do dessert for a Thanksgiving Day special. Yeah, I can't even talk really well. We got John here as my sous chef today. Needs some extra help. You can tell that since we've been here last and did our bison stew, it's snowed up here and it's wet and it's Oregon Coast Range, a little cold. Anyway, so today the plan is to start getting some coffee on, to get our blackberry Pop-Tart going, and hopefully I can talk and look at the camera at the same time. So John's gonna get the coffee in there, I'm gonna get the water in there. Anyway, why a blackberry Pop-Tart? Well, we all know Paul's kind of love for Pop-Tarts and so on. So that's the Pop-Tart part. Why the blackberry one? Because if Paul always said if he was to make a Pop-Tart, they'd be a blackberry with seeds. So that's what we're doing. We got some pie crust. I'm not making pie crust out here. I am not that skilled. We've got, some monk fruit over here. So let's get our pot up here. Now, how or why did Paul ever get involved with Pop-Tarts? Well, first of all, we're not involved with Pop-Tarts and the manufacturers thereof. But they were easy to carry in a foil pack. Even if they're crumbled, they're good. So for years, as kids and early teens, late teens, go ahead and pour those in here. Anyway, as he would carry a package of Pop-Tarts in his BDU blouse that were surplus that we had. That's what we liked, the big 4 pockets on them. And so, well, they're frozen like everything else today. Anyway, so the story that you guys have all heard about him getting lost, where they tracked him real easy. And that frustrated him the rest of his life, because he told me once, if they tracked him real easy, we would have found him that night. So, we didn't track him easy, apparently. And grab a hold of the sugar there and pour it in there and let's mix it up. Anyway, we didn't track him easy. So, but he had Pop-Tarts, and it was Christmas night. And that's what he had for Christmas night dinner, was Pop-Tarts. Is that enough?
Maybe, let's see.
Is it Paul enough?
Well, just a dabble, do ya?
All right. Well, man, I didn't know. I knew what I had. I didn't realize how small this Dutch oven was till we poured that entire bag of blackberries. These are Oregon-grown, wild, so to speak, blackberries out of Paul's backyard, to include a leaf. Well, I guess we'll have a leaf in the Pop-Tart. Where did a leaf go? So, the goal is today to get these mixed up, get them over the fire, and get them made into pie filling, so to speak. We got our ready-made crust and pastry crust, see which one works. We'll do after we get these started. We have a long spoon, and think off camera so we wouldn't have to bend over so much. Let's go ahead and put these up on the fire. You can stir those. And why don't you share, John, how you became part of the crew?
Okay, so I am actually not related to Paul or Roy at all. I didn't even come to really meet Paul until early 2022. He was at a gun show, and I went figuring, all right, at best, probably do a quick meet and greet, handshake and a picture. And we ended up talking for most of the day, to a shocking degree. He brought a lot of the guns from the channel and had them on the table. And we just kind of had hit it off. Well, the following year, in early 2023, he was at that same gun show, and I figured, you know, I'm going to go, and I also thought I'm going to bring my Jericho handgun along and see if he's ever been familiar with it, or see if he maybe would ever want to use it in a video. And we went, we chatted a little bit, and I showed it to him. He was not familiar with it, but he thought it was pretty neat, and we exchanged information, and I kind of thought, all right, well, I probably won't be with him, and that's okay. It was still pretty cool to talk to him again. And about a month or so later, he contacted me and asked if it could be used in a video with the alien logo. Thank you.
Technical difficulties, so we can make sure to hear the story. Here, let me do that. You finish your story.
Yeah, thanks. Ooh, sorry, smoke in the eye there for a second, gang. And so we did that video. Well, sometime later, he asked me again to help with the video that unfortunately the channel doesn't own. And so as it stands, we can't air it. And we can't really talk about it. But it did involve shooting a car. I can say that much. Well, in the course of doing that, which took us a whole weekend, him and I got to chatting at great length and just really became friendly and kind of stayed in touch here and there after that. And when he got sick at the beginning of this last year, we started to communicate just about daily. And then I was spending a lot of my days off traveling across the state to go see him. And we ended up going on a lot of adventures. We went shooting a lot, went fishing a lot. And I really got to know him and get to be close with him. And I consider it one of the greatest experiences of my life.
And the team's better for it. So, who isn't here from the crew today is Saul. He's been in a video or two. Brian, he's been in a video or two. Chuck, he's been in a video or two over all the years. Greg, he was Paul's primary cameraman toward the last 4 or 5 years or so. Glenn, he's been around the last couple years, great guy. And Jim. And Jim and Paul and I went to high school together. And Jim's a former Marine also. So, and all of us are firearms enthusiasts at different levels, different types. All of us have a couple, 3 military firearms. Some of us have more money than others, so our tastes are a little higher than others. John here loves, well, what is it? What would you call your Beretta and all those things? What category is that you love? I won't speak for you.
I've got a penchant for a lot of old school 9mm or police trade-ins. Like I've got a couple of police trade-in pistols that'll have either US roll marks on it, or I have a couple of Italian police agency pistols that also have roll marks on them that are pretty neat. I've also got a fondness for a lot of your classics or Eastern European guns. Like I recently just picked up a FEG PMK 380, which is basically like a Makarov and a Walther PP clone on one.
Now remember folks, all of this is in real time. There's no redos, there's no cuts, there's you know, when we let it just cook for a while, when we get the Pop-Tart put together, there will be. I don't think this is going to burn on us. We'll let that cook a little bit more. Good, turn into good juicy berries, good pie filling, or Pop-Tart filling. So let's let that sit for just a minute, and let's get the pie crust going. Ready-made pie crust. I also have some pastry crust, whatever pastry crust is. So put that back in there. We're going to use our more shallow big Dutch oven to put the pie crust in. And John, while I'm doing that, do you mind, my friend, getting the tortillas, the Paul trick to not burn your stuff too bad? Get the tortillas and put it in the bottom of this. Our knives are back. Remember, John's currently wearing one of Paul's old knives. We told the story about those already. Took them home and sharpened them up after our last adventure. Okay, that is, well, we're gonna have to trim this down because Pop-Tarts are not round. So we're gonna trim off a little edge, trim off a little edge. Now these will be unfrosted Pop-Tarts. Paul liked those unfrosted ones, and to be honest with you, I just couldn't figure out how to put frosting that would solidify like frosting on Pop-Tarts versus cake frosting. So we're going to do that. If all this works out right, we're going to have, we got some butter hidden away here, and we're going to have some butter on them when they're done. And I think they're going to taste really, really good on a day like today. We got good rave reviews from others that got our bison stew that we had. So, all right. Fork? Okay, why don't you bring that up here. And sorry we don't have a close-up in the pan for you. We'll do that. Let's set that one over there for now. That should work nicely. It takes up side to side all but an inch or so. You mind stirring those for us? Make sure they're doing okay. We're going to take our fork to seal the edges when we get ready. All right. And we're going to thicken our pie filling now that it's cooked down and juicy and stuff with some arrowroot slurry. Well, arrowroot's a thickener, little healthier for you than cornstarch, which is why we use it. Well, good thing about cooking outside, you don't have to worry about spilling. We tried to do the Old West motif a little bit. Got ourselves some Old Westy dishes. Almost all these Dutch ovens, I don't know how many I have, but I got one for every size. But almost every one of these Dutch ovens, well, every one of them work. Everything you see here minus the dishes today, are a Paul, we got from Paul. So, you've seen him on film before, he's used them a ton. So, anyway, let's get this poured in there and get our berries thickened up. There you go. Threw that in. Let's let it cook down a little bit. I'll leave the lid off. I'm anxious for the coffee.
Yeah, right?
So, I think it's getting there. Why are we out here? Excuse me. Let's put it back on John. Leave it there. Okay. Why are we out here? And before I go into that, I'm sorry. We only have the one mic. We're doing the best we can. So we got a creek running right over here. And it's nature. It's what we're out here for. And minus the weather, it's beautiful. We're out here because we're thankful that we live in a nation and a place that we have a Second Amendment right in. We're thankful that we have friends we can share this with. We're thankful for all of the support from you folks over the last year for me and for many, many years for Paul, for those that have asked and asked and asked for this Thanksgiving special. We're going to pull it off. We just hit 1.5. Couldn't have done that without everybody out there giving us support, giving us comments, just being our friends over the internet and everywhere else. Couldn't have been that way without Paul watching over us, which I think he was really testing my dedication, because on the way up here today, it was snowing, it was raining, cats and dogs, or sideways, or whatever you want to call it. My daddy might have said it was like a cow peeing on a flat rock. It was pouring. We got a couple, 3 inches of snow on the ground. You can't tell because it's slush now. So it took everything we could to get up here and get this done. We need a little more arrowroot. Let me see. It's not thickening like I wanted it to. Need a little more heat maybe. Let it cook for a while. What I think we're going to do, folks, is now we're going to let this cook down. We're not going to have you bored while we do that. And before we make the Pop-Tart, we'll come back, we'll show you that part of it. We'll get the Pop-Tart on there, and we'll get it done. So now we've got our Pop-Tart filling ready to go. So we're going to put it in here. And before we put the lid on it and the coals on it, we'll give you a close-up. We've done a little experimenting with another one off camera with a different type of dough. The problem we have is that sealing the edges is becoming an issue. So that's a challenge. And now it's cold out here, so as we heated it up, it went out. I'm not too sure that we aren't going to end up with more like a true just blackberry pie, but we're going to do it. And of course, you can't put too much filling in it because then it just oozes out around things. You don't have enough to seal it. As we know, if you've ever eaten a Pop-Tart, about half the edge is, nothing but dough. So, all right, that should give us the right amount. And our monk fruit is tasted out really well. We're going to take this, fold it over, and we're going to do our level best to figure out a way. All right, you gotta trim it just a little bit. But figure out a way to get the edges squished together. So, just set that aside. Now, I'm just going to roll these edges over in hopes that it'll bake together, to be honest with you. John, what's the favorite story you have about Paul while they watch me try to do this tedious thing?
There's a few things that come to mind, but the most glaring one, I think, was a time, I think this would have been maybe about last May, but we were out shooting at the range, and he was shooting this little, it was a 45 caliber Colt Defender 1911 handgun that at this point he'd had for maybe a month. We had taken it out a few times, and every time had been kind of problematic. And as we were shooting, I was wearing this same gun belt, and I had the Model 29 in it, and he was shooting that Defender, and it kept jamming left and right, or was having feed issues left and right. And finally it hit a point where he stood up and he grabbed his cane and his crutch and he said, "Follow me." He kind of stormed off into the distance, and I'd never really seen him mad or heard him yell, so it sort of caught me by surprise, and I snapped to and I started to follow suit. And he was walking towards this tree stump, and at a distance you could start to see what looked like rifles almost growing into the tree, and I thought, oh, this is kind of wild. Is this maybe like the image of that Civil War rifle that you've seen, or the World War II guns where trees have just grown into them? Is that what he's doing? And the closer we got, the more I could see where they were destroyed. I distinctly remember seeing the 22 Wildcat with its barrel just absolutely blossomed open. But we get to the stump.
So now he had a favorite tree to do this against? I didn't know that.
And we get to the stump, and he takes the Defender out of his shoulder holster he's wearing, and he throws it to the ground, and he snaps out his hand, and he just goes, "Gun!" And I hand him the Model 29, and he proceeds to just start shooting that little pistol, and I start, "What are you doing? What the F are you doing? What?" Because I had no idea. And he puts all 6 into that gun and blows it to pieces. And then he hands me the gun back and silently starts to saunter off, and I take a few minutes looking at the remnants of this gun on the ground, and I start to follow after him, and I ask him, like, what was that about? Why did you do that? And as he put it, quote, "The gun was a piece of shit. I couldn't sell it to anybody knowing that it was a piece of shit, and I wouldn't live long enough to sell it to Colt to get it fixed. So that's all I could do with it."
All right, well, I have cobbled this together. So we're going to bring it over here to the fire. We're going to move the camera in and give you a close-up before we put the lid on it, put the coals on it. Once we get that done, we're going to take a little break again, let it cook, show you the end results, do our wrap-up at that point. So, come on, John. Bring the lid with you. It's right there beside you. John's got delicate hands, so that's why you have to wear the mitt all the time. And this fire has been a lifesaver today, I'll tell you what. So, that looks good. Oh, we didn't give him a close-up. Hold on. Mr. Cameraman, bring the camera closer, would you please? So, tortillas in the bottom. Well, we'll just speak louder. Tortillas in the bottom. And there is what we're trying to do as a Pop-Tart. They'll never be jealous of me making Pop-Tarts. Let's get this going. Go ahead and dump some coals on the top there. It's ice cold, so the more the merrier. Again, I'm pretty sure, given today's weather and temperature, that Paul has dictated the weather to somebody saying, hey, that's good. We'll just leave them at that. You know, give them a real challenge. So, hang in there one more time. We'll come back when this thing's done. So we have things done, and off camera while we were waiting for things to cook, we caught ourselves another really nice fish from the local pond. So this one is the pastry dough, and we think we can set it out just completely, tortilla, non-burned bottom and all. So we do that, and we'll see if John can take a taste of it and see what happens. Don't eat the tortilla shell. I mean, you could, but oh, it is done. All right. Well, it's a little big for a Pop-Tart just to put in a package, but okay.
No, not bad.
Let's try this one. Let's see if we can not burn my silverware. Come over here. Move that. Okay. Now, look at that. Didn't even burn the tortilla underneath it. And, oh, yeah, it could have gone another minute maybe. All right, let's see how that tastes. So, sorry folks, it was not as rigid as a dried out Pop-Tart can be.
It's good, but the crust on that one is a little bit more pie-like.
Yeah. All right. So there you have it. I'm going to have my share here in a minute. And sorry for so. Remember to enjoy family. If you've watched all this, thank you very much. Keep Paul and the family in your thoughts and your prayers. We love the fact that so many of you, this was a tradition. We loved bringing this to you. And from me and the crew, happy Thanksgiving.
This isn't
Okay.
bad though.
Now, upon further examination, this one did turn out like a Pop-Tart. It was pastry dough, not pie dough. So next year, pastry dough. And it held together a little bit better. Yeah, and you can pick it up. So a little less flavor filling. Yeah, that's what we'll do. Come up with new flavor next year.
I like that you casually use the K-bar to cut the Pop-Tart.
Well, that's because it's an all-around, all-purpose knife that's 40 years old. And, you know, I mean, it's been my go-to, go-everywhere knife. So, you keep it all sharpened up, and it worked really good. Anyway, we do need to start packing up, take care of our fish after we eat our snack here.
Yeah, I can't believe you guys caught another fish out there.
And we'll. All right. Call it a day.